NATO called Trump daddy. Zelensky actually wore a suit. A Ukrainian journalist got Trump to say yes. This series of completely ridiculous events is very likely because the United States has sufficiently broken the delicate balance of terror amongst nuclear-armed nations.
You're goddamn right.
The GBU-57MOP, that stands for Massive Ordnance Penetrator, bombing of Iran might be one of the most significant events of this century. And it's very likely that from now on, any nation's leader who wants to pop off and start a war just might be the first to get popped. Cause the bombing of Iran shows that no matter how deep your bunker is, America can still
bomb the shit out of them.
So, to be that bomb and to all of you who have been supporting us by buying this popcorn, 多谢认真. This shit is absolutely delicious. And today, I'm gonna recommend the Jiao Tang Haiyan, because once you open this bag and take one bite, you will really know. 代际多屌. Alright, first things first. To the US Air Force, I need to say paise wabntil, because in my previous video, I said this. So 12 bunker busters were dropped at Fordo. The first 2 were set to explode at a shallow depth, causing the mountain to collapse, creating 8-meter wide holes to open a pathway. Then, 5 bombs were fired at each hole. At each hole, 2 bombs failed to enter the pathway, but 3 successfully did, achieving a precision of 60%. Because it turns out I was wrong as because just 2 days ago, the Pentagon held a press conference, and soon after Pete Hegseth's angry tirade against reporters, General Raising Cane had something very interesting to say. In addition to revealing a lot of key details about the operation in Iran, he also revealed that they didn't miss a single target. 100% accuracy.
So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these 3 holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with 2 additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these 2 ventilation shafts, as seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work.
Well, it turns out the 6 holes we saw in those satellite images were all ventilation shafts. And the US Air Force targeted the 2 main ventilation shafts in the center, and the other 2 nearby holes that appeared damaged were caused by the blast wave escaping through the ducts.
Bombs away!
Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick wasn't exaggerating at all. The US Air Force possesses improved missile precision to the point where, from 10 kilometers in the air, they can accurately fire a missile into a 3-meter wide exhaust vent, and they did it 6 times consecutively with missiles.
All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over. A point that I want to make here: the Joint Force does not do BDA. By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. And we know this through other means, intelligence means that we have that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them. And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight."
This was the first time the US even used the GBU-57 in combat, and it was also the first time they bombed a reinforced concrete underground bunker. And check this, they've been preparing for this operation for nearly 16 years.
There's an organization in the US called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordow, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing.
So DTRA has a dedicated team whose sole job is to study how to eliminate specific targets. And they only mention Iran as a target here, which means besides Iran's underground bunkers, there are probably some other teams specifically studying
China, because China.
And Russia's underground bunkers as well. The bombing of Iran proved that DTRA's research is very correct and accurate, and that the GBU-57 can penetrate reinforced concrete defenses. And the United States Air Force's guidance capabilities can precisely deliver all GBU-57s into the same impact crater. This means no matter how deep your bunker is, if one GBU isn't enough, 10 will be. No one's underground bunker is safe.
Shit, boy.
And soon after the giant black unit massive ordnance penetrator went deep on Iran's bunker, some very popular nuclear-armed authoritarian regimes, aka China and Russia, might have started realizing that things don't look too good. 全世界好像有几个大变化咯，到底是什么？让我们继续看下去。Oh.
Thanks to mutually assured destruction, MAD for short, this has yet to happen and is very unlikely to, but what is it exactly and how does it work? MAD is a simple concept. Any schoolyard child involved in a water balloon fight understands. You have water balloons, but so do I. If you throw one of your balloons at me, I will drench you by throwing all of mine. So it's better to find a victim instead who has no water balloons to throw back at you. Two nuclear powers are unlikely to use the nuclear weapons against each other, because both know that they will suffer an immediate and overwhelming response. This leaves the only acceptable option as a full-scale nuclear war, which itself is completely unacceptable to anyone but a complete psychopath. Thus, nuclear war is averted.
Mutually assured destruction. MAD, just like its acronym, is the most insane concept in the world, and it's also the worst kind of balance to fight against terror. So in that case, the best defense against nuclear weapons is an underground bunker.
This is the story of Putin's bunkers. Near the end of March 2022, two airplanes did something strange. They both belonged to the Rossiya Special Flight Detachment, a fleet of aircraft directly subordinate to the President of the Russian Federation. In peacetime, these planes flew between Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Sochi, but now they flew differently. Only about a month after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, RA-61716 visited Yekaterinburg once, and then Ufa twice. The other plane, RA-96017, also flew to Yekaterinburg, and then to Magnitogorsk. Why these two planes would fly to these three cities in the east, right when the invasion of Ukraine had just started, was a bit weird. This was the time when Russia realized that their invasion of Ukraine would not take a week. Something changed. Maybe these flights were part of a new drill in preparation of a much longer war, or maybe some politicians just had some undisclosed business. But what made it weirder was the location. Right in the middle of all three of these cities is an open secret. Between Ufa, Yekaterinburg, and Magnitogorsk is the highest mountain in the southern Urals, Yamantau. It is also home to what some believe is a bunker the size of a city made for Russia's political elite.
In the mad world of mad, those politicians who start wars have increasingly deeper underground bunkers to protect themselves, and they possess more and more nuclear weapons to threaten the world. So, no matter how powerful the US military is, authoritarian regimes with nuclear weapons keep bullying smaller countries, like Ukraine and Taiwan. But just as the atomic bomb ended World War II, it is very likely that the GBU-57 could prevent World War III.
But Yamantau is special, because in the 1990s, US spy satellites picked up that the Russians were working on it again. More than 30 years later, some say construction is ramping up. Next to Yamantau is a town called Mezhgoye. Formed after the merger of two military camps, Mezhgoye is militarily restricted. Not any Russian can get in. So at the end of April 2021, the locals in Mezhgoye were in for a surprise. An Ufa-based newspaper reported that a convoy of at least 19 units of heavy construction vehicles showed up with license plates registered in Moscow. The local mayor's office informed the paper that the vehicles would expand the asset base of Upravlение Stроительства No. 30. US 30 is contracted specifically for heavy construction projects, including the construction of large-scale underground complexes. They didn't comment on the purpose of the expansion because the projects of US 30 are directly under management of the Ministry of Defense. In April of 2021, military convoys showed up in Mezhgoye, and in April of 2021, the Russians also mobilized thousands near the border of Ukraine. Months later, parts of the presidential fleet flew to cities in the immediate area, seemingly out of nowhere.
The United States used 12 GBU bombs to strike Iran's so-called 300-meter deep underground bunker, completely proving that no matter how deep you hide, the US Air Force, using conventional weapons with no need for nuclear ones, can turn your large underground military bunker into a large military tomb.
You can run, but you can't hide, bitch!
Anyone, like Iran's top leaders, thinking they can hide in bunkers hundreds of meters deep and threaten the world with World War III or nuclear weapons, can no longer hide. And after bombing Iran, NATO's stance completely changed.
They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language
You have to use strong language.
The NATO Secretary General openly and gleefully called Trump Daddy.
Nigga, you gay.
Orange Daddy is talking about school kids fighting. You could call him principal, you could call him teacher, but you call this fool daddy? I don't know if this is flattering or just straight up weird. But either way, it's great entertainment.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own?
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning, and I think they'll be able to, and I think they're going to remember this day. And this was a big day for NATO. You know, this was a very big day. They took it. One of the gentlemen said, you know what? We've been trying to raise money raise the rate for 30 years, he said, 20 years, from almost the beginning. And he's been there for a long time. He said, until you came along, it never happened. What you did is amazing. It's been sort of an amazing day for a lot of reasons, but also for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think they can do it without you, though, in the future? Can they do it without?
Well, ask Mark. I mean, you have to ask Mark, okay?
And something very special and important happened at the NATO summit. They suddenly agreed to raise their military budget to 5% of their GDP. And then something else happened.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ukraine.
Oh,
so my question to you is whether or not the US is ready to sell anti-air missile systems Patriot to Ukraine. We know that Russia has been pounding Ukraine really heavily right now.
Are you living yourself now in Ukraine?
My husband is there.
Wow.
And
I can see you it's amazing.
And me with the kids, I'm in Warsaw actually, because he wanted me to be.
Is your husband a soldier? No? He's there now?
Yeah.
Wow, that's rough stuff, right? That's tough. And you're living here?
In Warsaw.
And you're a reporter?
I am.
Good. So let me just tell you, they do want to have the missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots. And we're going to see if we can make some available, you know? They're very hard to get. We need them too. We were supplying them to Israel, and they're very effective, 100% effective. Hard to believe how effective. And they do want that more than any other thing, as you probably know. That's a very good question, and I wish you a lot of luck. I mean, I can see it's very upsetting to you. So say hello to your husband, okay? Thank you.
Now, a large majority of House Democrats disagree with impeaching Trump. And 4 days after the bombs dropped, Trump announced a deal with China. All the while, Zelensky decided to put on a suit. And every NATO country, except for one, agreed to increase their military budget to 5% of their GDP. Trump suddenly became very friendly to Ukraine and agreed to provide more Patriot missiles to them. And all this happened immediately after the U.S. Air Force dropped that GBU-57 MOP, which took them 16 years to develop, successfully penetrating an underground bunker at least 100 meters deep. Oh, by the way, did you know that Trump really likes Putin? Putin's his great friend.
Yeah. Everyone's saying, oh, he's a nuclear power. It's like they're a friend of him. You know, he was a friend of mine. I got along great with him. I said, Vladimir, if you do it, we're hitting Moscow. I said, we're going to hit Moscow. And he sort of believed me, like 5%, 10%. That's what you need. He never did it during my time, John, you know.
No.
We're all talking about it.
No, it's funny.
Why did he do this during the last 4 years? Because he knew he couldn't.
It's funny how she didn't bother you either.
Yeah, no, she didn't bother me. And I told him the same thing. That'll be next.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be next. Taiwan will be next. You won't have any computer chips.
During his first term, Trump told Putin straight up, if you step to Ukraine, I'm gonna
bomb the shit out of him.
Xi Jinping seems to be next. So Putin waited until Sleepy Joe took office to make his move, and now the United States has some very new powerful weapons. Trump proved to Iran and the world that he is the mad dog that barks and bites.
Let me clue you in. I am the danger.
And I'm guessing in the next few months, or even the next few weeks, Ukraine and Russia will finally reach a ceasefire agreement because Putin might realize that his underground bunker just ain't deep enough. 大鸡多掉喽
No. Wait.
So, do you think the GBU-57 MOP that goes deep will scare those hiding in underground bunkers? Do you think the GBU-57 MOP that goes deep can prevent World War III? Let me know what you think down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side. Peace!